So I'm going to check YouTube, going to check some videos, watch some stuff, maybe, I don't know, dick around, watch some critique videos, which are some of my favorite, when I come across a video called Fallout 76 is a Lie in my recommended videos area. It was a super clickbaity title that worked exceptionally well, as I'd never heard of this dude before, I'd never seen any of his videos before, I didn't know anything about him. But he obviously liked Fallout and didn't like 76 enough to make this video. So, like, what? Did he not like the gameplay? What did he expect about it that he didn't get? I love watching videos like that, so I figured I'd sit down and watch that one. I got about halfway through it before I realized this guy has literally no idea what he's talking about. He sounds like someone who only played the first 4 hours of the beta, didn't play the rest of them, and then released this video at the end of the 6 days worth of betas we've had. His points are almost all just wrong, or things he doesn't know about, or systems he's apparently not gotten to in the game, and so at halfway, I backed it up, went in, and I'm going to address the points he made as I come to them, because it was just wrong. And I've never made a video like this before, and his editing style is far superior to mine, which is that of a trash boy who has no idea what he's doing, but I feel as though I can make some valid arguments against a lot of the things he said in a way that will maybe make you look at Fallout 76 and go, you know what? It isn't a lie.
I'm going to preface it real quick by saying I still don't have a lot of recording footage for the game because I never thought to record it because I make terrible life decisions. So even though he only played 4 hours and I played 18 hours, he has better looking footage than me. But anyways, let's go to the main points.
The first point he comes to is the main story. In his video, he says all you do is follow quest markers around and there are no characters, which I would simply say is wrong. In fact, I would go so far as to say that there are more characters that have more dialogue and more story and more behind them than some of the ones in Fallout 4, which, as I said in my other Fallout 76 video, is more something to say about how awful Fallout 4 was compared to how actually okay 76 is in that regard. But even though it doesn't have NPCs, you do follow a main quest. There is a main story to do. You have main story plot points and locations and places you go to. It starts out with you following the Overseer as she goes around the world. You find her going to her old parents' home, her old nearby town, the school she went, her high school she went to, the college she went to, eventually even coming home to her old lover who she ended up not being allowed to marry, and getting to see why she stayed in West Virginia. She even had a chance to go be the overseer for Vault 101 from Fallout 3 and chose not to. You find out about her past and the path that she walked, and that's just one of them. For almost every location, you can go into a building and find different things. I walked up to a random place I found and walked into a random part of the building. It had a completely different story from the rest of it about people just trying to survive against an endless horde of zombies, which were ghouls, obviously, just never-endingly coming after them, getting slowly split up over time, and the robots not really helping them because technically the ghouls were still the residents and you're visiting, but it was a crazy tale. And you can hear the story of like a doctor who locked herself up in a room on accident to escape something, only to find out she couldn't get out from the inside. So you hear her slowly diagnosing her own self-trauma and then even going through the steps it takes for her to commit suicide as she realizes no one will be there to save her and she can't go on. It has NPCs and it has a story that is incredibly interesting. Following the Overseer's journey, you even find to come that the man she'd left behind has now become a Scorched, which is a horrific kind of raider ghoul-esque mixture that we'll come back to later because I can follow that up with a really good point. But the main story follows around you just trying to find nukes due to the Overseer realizing the Scorched are a somewhat dangerous threat. So, we'll come back to that in a bit. In the video, he looks at the world and says, it's beautiful and nice to explore, but you have no reason to. And I kind of have got to disagree with that. I mean, if you're saying that not finding new loot, not upgrading gear, not fighting things to level up, or do more quests, or just to go in some random buildings to find their history,
Which I should mention is about half the reason buildings exist in the Fallout games at all, because most of them don't have quests attached to them.
just to go around the world and explore, if you're saying that all of those aren't reasons to explore in the world, then sure. If you're saying that literally the reasons you explore in every other Fallout game aren't reasons to explore the world, then sure. He made a point that enemies will sometimes respawn quickly around and in front of you. It happens in MMO-style games, which he obviously didn't realize that's exactly what Fallout 4 is trying to emulate, with its leveling and quests that are obviously akin to that style. Not necessarily, the 100-player MMO Elder Scrolls Online style, but closer to, a couple friends, 60, 20, 30 people in a match kind of online game. And, I suppose he has a point there. The enemies do respawn a little bit quicker than they probably should, but it usually happens when other people are coming into the new area and it's spawning in new enemies or something like that. It can be annoying at times, but it's not really a big complaint, when in the past it was just wait 3 days and everything respawns, even crates get loot back in them. So you can just stand in front of a crate, wait 3 days for it to refill, and then loot from that forever until you're good enough to play the entire game with all the loot you got from a random crate. He has issues with how the game feels apparently too easy for him, how everything dies in 1 to 2 hits. In the video as he says this, he's fighting enemies that are 4 to 5 levels beneath him with a gun that is one of the more powerful ones, being a single-shot revolver. He said, and I quote, "I thought it was just an issue with difficulty until I found another enemy near double my level," which would be fair, but I've explored around enough to know what he found wasn't actually a major threat of an enemy. No, if you go far enough south, you come to the ash area, where there's so much radiation and ash and smoke in the air, you sometimes need a gas mask just to walk around and breathe properly, or you could be in trouble. The enemy he happened to run into was one of the basic enemies of that area, and not even the special variant of them. He ran into something that endpoints where I was playing during the second open beta, I ended up running into up to 12 or more of those enemies at a time. That would be levels above me or at my level. Yes, they're not particularly tough because they are then the new ghouls for that area. They're the new basic enemies. They're the new scorched for parts of areas. They're the new mook enemy for those areas. They're not supposed to be tons of really powerful and different ones. You do also have the death claws, all the different robots, and different things like that, which are a lot tougher, or even the giant bat, which at one point killed me near instantly. I took 3 hits from it and dropped dead. There are tough enemies in the game. He just happened to not come across one because he was fighting low-level ones until he fought one that was also supposed to be a lower-level common enemy. However, he does say that the game has many differing enemies, which I agree with. Animal-wise, robot-wise, it's simply more enemies than anything else in the entirety of the Fallout franchise, which is fantastic. Being an online game means you're going to see these enemies a lot more often than you would in even 3 or 4, and you're going to have more time to fight them and more time to go into battles with them, meaning you better hope they're varied so you're not running into the same enemies over and over and over again, because that would be just straight up annoying. There's less gunslinging enemies, as robots, super mutants, and scorched are the only things with firearms, but there are more enemies later on that have differing ones. At least I found that the mole enemy he fought in his video, I found a couple of those with differing interesting weapons later on. There are more, you just have to explore to find more and tougher ones. So it's good in that regard. It has differing enemies per area, like I said. I saw a lot less super mutants and scorched when I went south to the mining area and found more of a mining mole rat kind of guy enemy. And in fact, I barely saw anything else while I was there. And while they weren't that much of a threat, as a lot of them used mostly melee, the ones that use guns could pick you apart while you're trying to avoid the ones with melee. They actually made for a decent threat and a decent fight in a lot of areas. Plus, the fact that they were full mining crews that turned into these things meant there were multiple ones of them in any area. This made it feel vastly more distinct than any other place I'd been. I went from happy sunshine to an area to the north that was covered in just ash and toxic radioactive water, to a place in the south that was covered in ash of a different kind, more smoke, more mining areas that looked burnt out instead of just covered in white ash. It was a completely different style of place compared to the foresty, happy-go-lucky place you start in. The next complaint he had was about specifically the Scorched. which gives me reason to come back to what I was talking about before. He says they're not as interesting as Raiders, they don't have good lines like Raiders, and specifically, I'm honestly unsure if this is a joke, but he took it a little too seriously for me to tell. He says they don't say things like, "You never should have come here," but they do. They talk. They make little gestures. They talk about, "Oh, you shouldn't be here," and things like that all the time. Maybe he didn't notice. Maybe he didn't hear it. I honestly don't know. If you turn general dialogue subtitles on, you can absolutely easily see that, yeah, they do talk. That is a thing they do. That's not something they just don't do. And Scorch themselves not being interesting, not being fun, you shoot them and they die. Yeah, they're weak, but they don't appear in other Fallout games. And why is that? It's actually the story of Fallout 76, which he earlier claimed there is none. You see, when you find the Overseer's ex-lover and find out that he's been turned into a Scorched, she was horrified. She couldn't even bring herself to kill him like she knew she had to. She asked you to do it. After you do so, she realizes and goes into research about people who have learned about the Scorched, learned about how they are created and what they are about. They seem to be stronger than normal humans, more fit for radiation, but they use weapons, but they attack anything that's not them on sight. They've killed a lot of the towns you go to. They've flat out killed most of the people you get holotapes from. They're a menace, and the story of Fallout 76 is you going around picking up arms and trying to find nuclear warheads to get rid of them, because there is no hope at all of rebuilding in a world in which they exist. The reason that they are an interesting foe is they're a new and major one that would actually completely have destroyed the world had you not done something that stops them from getting anywhere else. You don't see them in DC, you don't see them in Fallout 4, but they're here now just 25 years after. They should have grown and expanded and moved out, but they didn't. And that's part of the Fallout 4 story. It makes them more interesting than Raiders. It makes them more interesting than super mutants and just even ghouls in most of the other Fallout games. But I guess he either disagrees with that or didn't make it far enough at all to even know. Who knows which one. Oh wait, I do know, because he has his quest up. He simply didn't get that far in the main story, because he only played for 4 hours and made a video about it. You drop some little hints before hitting the next point that the game kinda has MMO elements, which we'll come back to almost instantly. His next segment is on loot, where he says the gunplay is bad and enemies are bad, so obviously the loot has to be good, and does he think so? No. It is at this point he realized the game is basically an MMO style game. It has a lot of MMO quests, lots of different areas. Maybe you leave a town and come to the next one, and it's got a special event. It has events just like MMOs and Destiny and tons of other games, and yeah, that's basically because it was supposed to be kind of an MMO style game. It's not, taking everything from them, but like, alright, let's say you do every single quest in the game. What then? Alright, well, there's events, so you can always go and do them. You literally ask, why does the game have these? It's because if you do every quest in every area, what are you going to do? You're literally going to wander around and shoot random enemies to upgrade and level up. That's not what Bethesda games are about. This is still a Bethesda game at heart. If you explore everything, you can always come back and do events and upgrade and things like that. He says there's no characters, and he just doesn't want to go around and shoot things, which I've gone over in a different video. I feel like there are none in a traditional sense, but picture this and tell me there isn't character here. When you go to the airport, you find out about a special mechanic. This mechanic has been going around this different airport and messing with the different robots and changing their parameters. He's one of the few people still living there. When you arrive there, you find out that he's gone out into the woods and accidentally set a robot to follow him who has to stay in close proximity to him. Eventually, you go out and find in the woods, and his robot is just in there berating his corpse who's stuck there forever. It was funny and dark and traditional Fallout-style character. Now, is the robot himself particularly a great character? No, but is it funny to read the stories about this dude messing with all the robot parameters and then dying there only to literally find his corpse and find the robot like, great job, Michael, you died here, and now I'm stuck here forever. Thanks a lot. Good going. I told you I heard noises. Like, yeah, it's typical Fallout-style questing, and it is some good characters, even if it's not traditional sense of characters. He also says, there's a game with no quests.
Says the man who has 8 quest markers up on his screen at the moment he says this.
1 event, 3 miscellaneous, 2 main quests, and other side quests.
Game has no quest. Yeah, sure. Game has no quest. Sure, why not? Yeah.
It says he finds the loot to not be good because you kill a bunch of things. You get 500 pipe pistols worth 1 cap each. Thank you, Todd. What a great segue to the next point. Its next point being crafting. He finds the crafting system to be gutted. It's gutted to the point where you cannot upgrade or make anything cool like you could in the other Fallout games. It was at this point that I decided to go back and make this video, that I decided to come back and rebuttal the points he made, because he obviously literally didn't get far enough to know how the systems in the game work on any capacity. He talks about how much he liked it in Fallout 4. Well, I'm here to tell you something, bud. It is exactly the same as the crafting system in Fallout 4. Now, what you didn't know, because you didn't bother to learn it or care enough to, is that those weapons you sold for 1 cap each, you're not supposed to sell them for 1 cap each. If you go to any place where you can scrap any materials, you can scrap your own items you have on you. If you scrap a pistol, you might get the hardened receiver for that, or the better stock, or the better grip, or upgrades for the weapons. You don't just magically get all of them because you're a special dude who learns everything instantaneously, like, oh, I'm out of the vault and I know how to make a sight for this gun. No, you don't. In this one, you actually have to put in some time and effort. If you want to get upgrades for the hunting rifle, you better not only have the materials, but have killed things and scrapped enough hunting rifles to have actually learned properly what you need to make them. And if you just scrap them for every one of them, oh, here's the auto receiver, here's the hardened receiver, here's the scope, here's this, here's that. Eventually you can upgrade those weapons because you learn them. But no, he didn't bother to learn that. He didn't bother to pay attention when it was telling him how to get those upgrades. He didn't bother. But he bothered to make a video pointing out how the crafting's bad, even though he literally doesn't know how it works. This was the point at which I decided I should make this video, because it's a lame excuse when you don't know the game has systems that you're complaining about the game not having. It's your own fault for not learning them at that point, not the game's for you thinking it doesn't have them. Sorry, that was a little rant. It kind of made me mad when I saw that. That's kind of the reason I decided to make this video. And we'll move to his next point, which is something me and him agree on. The cash shop. There's a full cash shop in it, and it's awful. Like, just straight up. I can agree with that. Cash shops are awful. The thing I will say on it that makes me feel slightly better about it was the fact that it's all purely cosmetic, which all the clothing is. The armor and stuff like that isn't, but you can throw on any clothing over the top of that, and it's all cosmetic, and it's all just for looks. And while that's bad, it's nice that's there. It's nice that you can just do all cosmetic stuff, and none of it actually affects the game in any real way, unlike the cash shops in Fallout 3 and Skyrim Special Edition, where you had to buy mods. He also does a mission that you can earn cash for the cash shop through doing challenges and never have to spend any money on anything, which is exactly how I got the blue Pip-Boy I have when I play now. But he probably didn't get far enough to learn that. Leveling was his next wonderful point. He feels like leveling doesn't much matter and sucks and is completely random, and he's just straight up wrong. He made a point in his own video where he looks at the perks he could take at no cost. This isn't him like, oh, I have a perk point, let me use it. It would have literally been that, actually. He has different perks. He has one in strength. He has a perk card that could go in strength that would make his weapons way less, and he just chose to not use it. This isn't him saying, oh, they all suck, so I didn't even pick one. He's literally just doesn't understand how it works or doesn't care to learn it, so he's literally not bothering to. I'm not sure if he's just trying to be snarky or he just generally doesn't like it. I really honestly can't tell. The leveling allows you to learn specific skills and upgrades whenever you want when going around the world. If you get a perk pack, it gives you some more optional cards that you can immediately use and you don't have to actually spend a point on. The point is, those are rare and you may not even be able to use them to begin with. Let's say if you've never upgraded your endurance at all, but you got a card that requires 2 endurance points, you may not be able to use it because, again, you haven't upgraded your endurance at all. This means you actually need to make more decisions when picking what you want to upgrade. Do you want to pick more of strength, or do you not? Well, in the long run, you might end up needing more strength, because after a certain point, you no longer get to actually pick which specials you want to upgrade and which ones you want to put more perk cards to. Sure, you get more perk cards, you can change them out whenever, but that doesn't mean you'll be able to use all the ones you want. But this actually allows you to roleplay in a way. I have upgraded myself after I learned how you actually get the upgrades for weapons and, actually bothered to learn the game. I went around killing a bunch of stuff to get weapon upgrades so I could actually build cooler and better weapons for my friends. Then I took perks to let me do that. And I didn't take ones for armor. I took ones to let me carry more loot, carry more guns, and upgrade guns. My friends took one for armor because he was the armorer and I was the weapons guy. We actually had weapons and where we could upgrade them, and one person had a role, I had a different role. It actually allowed us to do that. But hey, let's say you come back to your base and you put on your stuff for building, and then you build a great home and you build a great base, and then you want to go back out exploring. Well, because now you can switch your perks at any given point in time, you can just put on your perks to give you like gunsmith or armorer or like whatever weapon building and the building perks so that it costs less materials, and then immediately turn around, take those off, put on ones that give you more damage with rifles and more damage with pistols and make weapons carry weight be less, so that you can go out and explore and actually kill stuff and fight around in the world. It's a better system. At least it's better for an online game. At some point, I forgot to write this down, but I'm remembering it. He mentions that he feels like power armor is probably a superpower that lets you be extremely powerful. I played this game for 18 hours. There are a couple items in the game that are shared and aren't, and fusion cores is one of them. I have found a total of 4 of them, which, if it's anything like Fallout 4, and it is because I have found power armor, you run through those fusion cores fast. Actually being able to have that armor on all the time is not possible. It actually makes the system they tried to implement in Fallout 4 that didn't work because everyone had ass loads of fusion cores work, because instead of having 999, I played for 8 hours, and I have 4 of them. It's actually good and actually works in an interesting way that means you're not going to want to spend all of your fusion cores, and power armor isn't going to be something that everyone has all the time. So, guess he got far enough to learn that. Again. His next point was building, which kind of fits back in with the other point I was saying, which is that you have an insanely small build place, and once you log out, everything's taken down and you have to put it back up again, and you don't get to just let it be there and carry over to the next area. And that building, you don't get to scrap things, so you just kind of got to deal with what's there. I will agree that it's annoying that you have to deal with whatever's there whenever you put your camp down, wherever you want to put your camp down. But I digress. I'll agree with that. I'll also mention that he obviously still doesn't know about certain systems in the game. Still. Because there are areas like the Graphs and Steel Factory you can find, which nets you different materials the longer you hold that place, which you can actually fight and have turf wars with other players on the map over it in full PvP combat. If you hold these locations, you get building materials, you get building items, you get things to make more bullets, and different things like that, just for holding the location and owning it. You even get events based around it, which you can use to give people materials if they help you out with them. And if you try to take one, you get in a fight with the other owner of it, and can actually engage in full PvP to forcibly take the location from them. I found 3 locations like this on the map. One of them would allow me to craft infinite ammunition if you hold 2 of them. One of them could make you your steel and your lead, the other one's a mining area, which would make you the gunpowder, and the rest of it. You could literally work together with your team and work together with other people to make trades and make like money and have an actual trade system in the game. And in those locations, you have a much larger building area than your base building area, where you can go around and do things as you want to. On top of that, he obviously didn't come in and out much, because whenever you do, you don't have to rebuild your entire house. As long as you have a saved building of multiple things stuck together, you can whip that out at any location and set it down whenever you want. Immediately upon signing in, you can place down your camp, pull your house out, and just set it down on the ground. All of it stays there, all of it's saved to your inventory. It's not something you have to rebuild every single time at all. He's just flat out wrong in that regard. The building isn't nearly as bad. Yeah, it's a little annoying because you don't get the mods you had in 4, but I don't know what you expected from an online game with no mods that's based off 4. We're getting close to the end of this video, as now we're hitting one of his last points, the multiplayer. He literally said that he's never teamed up with someone. I find that to be personally really funny, because it lets me know how much he missed. He didn't even know that there wasn't shared loot for the most part. Yeah, like, oh hey, there's a Nuka-Cola in this thing. If my friend picks it up, I can't. Well, he doesn't know that, oh, I killed this ghoul, we can both loot the ammo off of it and both loot the guns because they're different for each of us. He didn't even know that. He never did an event which forces you to team up with people either, to have learned that, obviously. He even shows off his PvP, and his PvP experiences were bad. That makes this the second video I've seen where someone just had a bad PvP experience with Fallout 76 and just assumed the PvP was a broken mess. You can watch my own Fallout 4 video where I did my first impressions after playing the beta for, at that point, it was only 14 hours. I wasn't including the other time I got in over the other 2 betas. You can hear Mike talk about the PvP and the segments I had, and it was actually fantastic. The PvP can work well, it just always doesn't. Having a friend to help you team up to beat up a guy who may not even fight back means, guess what? Surprise, surprise.
You can pretty easily kill people who don't fight back if you have friends to help you.
Because I've done it. Flat out. You pull 2 automatic weapons on them, their stim packs are not going to help them enough. They just aren't. He went to show off a glitch he found in the game where you can just drop people and then shoot them in the head when they're on their final life, which, surprise, surprise, there's different glitches and bugs and way to break a Bethesda game. Oh me, oh my. I mean, I gotta say something about that. This isn't Bethesda Game Studios who are making this game primarily. It's Bethesda Game Studios Austin. If you don't know what that means, that's the Battlecry devs. If you don't know what Battlecry is, that makes sense. That game's been canceled for a year now. They were making that game, and they stopped to make the online for this, which means this game was made in about 2 years, because Battlecry only got officially canceled last year, and they weren't even Bethesda Game Studios Austin. They took what they'd done on Battlecry to make the online for this game, working with Bethesda's wonderful creation engine. The engine which only Bethesda knows how to develop for, because it's such a buggy piece of actual trash that it's near impossible for anyone to do anything with it. Bethesda knows somewhat what they're doing, which is why they're the studio mainly helping out with this. They're the parent company. Bethesda Game Studios Prime don't know how to do online, which is what shows in the final point. Security. I got nothing for this. I have a full video plan for why Fallout 76 is probably having such a terrible PC port, but honestly, no excuse, nothing I can say will make how absolutely shit their port currently is look any better. It is unacceptable. The things they've done with the PC port are unacceptable, and the PC port is disgusting. There's probably a decent reason as to why, which a lot of people might not like, but I have a whole other much smaller, maybe 4 or 5 minute video plan to talk about that down the line. So in conclusion, I learned at the beginning of this video why it seemed like he really didn't actually know all that much about this game. I went back when he started talking about the crafting when I realized he literally is complaining about a system that he doesn't know how it works and assuming things aren't there because he didn't read the tutorials or take the time to learn it. And that was when I went back to actually make this video. Now, I don't mean to just go after this one guy and his video, but I do mean to say the points he made are poor and honestly bad. He played for the first day of the beta, canceled his pre-order, and couldn't bring himself to play for the others. There were 6 days of beta. That means he played for the maximum original 4 hours that there were. I played the game for 18 hours of beta, and I still have some tutorial stuff going on. It's a Bethesda game. When's the last time you have played Skyrim? Did you play it the first time and know everything about it after 4 hours? After you had, maybe not even killed your first dragon? Did you know everything? Or Fallout 3? Or 4? Or New Vegas? Did you know everything there was to know about Fallout 4 and how it was going to go before you made it to Diamond City? Before you made it to the Strip in New Vegas? Before you met the Brotherhood in 3? You didn't. He's basing an entire Bethesda game off 4 hours. Now, I'm not saying you should buy a game that you obviously dislike or don't like the things it's doing and play the whole thing just to judge it. You shouldn't have to watch an entire series of a show just to judge it. But I am going to say that you can't judge an online game without ever playing it with friends and after only playing it for 4 hours when it is a big, expansive Bethesda game at heart. Within saying that it is a large Bethesda game, I do wish to mention the bugs. I can't disagree that the game was a buggy mess. It was. In my videos, you will see bugs, because there are bugs in the footage. And I only had 30 minutes of footage because I made the mistake of not recording more than that. But still, I only had those bugs during the first 4 hours, and I literally didn't have a single one of them at all the other 14 hours I played. And with that, thanks for watching. Alright, I've never really made a video like that before. I don't know if it's going to go good or bad for me, but we'll see. If you like this, it was one of my more serious videos. I make those every once in a while, but I do plan some Let's Plays in between. If you enjoyed this, please stick around. I'd enjoy seeing you there.